Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today's build is the Poison Shuriken build on the Bladedancer. Now this build's going to revolve around both shifting to proc Shurikens so that you can speed run through echoes and just shift all the way till the end, clearing anything that comes within close proximity to your character along the way. And then when you get to the end, you just manually spam Shurikens, get in lots of hits with it, and do an absolute astronomical amount of poison damage. You can go from 0 to 200k ticks on the training dummy in about 3 seconds with this build, so you can just definitely wipe out bosses and rares extremely quickly, and you're going to leech a good portion of that damage back because we will be wearing the bleeding heart while we're not running any spells. That means that we won't be putting any bleed on ourselves, but we will be leeching a huge portion of all that damage that we're doing. Since we're not doing a whole lot of hit damage and it's all dot damage, the bleeding heart is the perfect unique for this. Now, on top of all of those things, we will also be using a high amount of dodge so that we'll have really high survivability. Now, while dodge is one of those hit and miss things, where if you get hit and it's a one-shot, yeah, you're gonna die. So this isn't something I'd recommend for hardcore. However, because of just how high our dodge is, I found that even empowered content was pretty easy to get through and even speed run through. Alright, let's go ahead and get into the skills, the interactions, and just how this build works. For skills, I'm running Acid Flask, Shift, Shurikens, Smoke Bomb, and Synchronized Strike. For Shift, the reason we have this included in the build is it will auto be procced by when we shift. There'll be one both from where we depart and one where we arrive. And it does lots of poison things for us, including Shred, Poison on Hit, giving poison pulls, doing poison chance. There's a lot of things that it's doing, so we're going to include it in the build because one, we don't even have to manually cast it, and two, it boosts the damage that we're trying to do. So we've got 3 points in Caustic Concoction. This gives the Flask themselves 45% chance to poison on hit for all the enemies that they hit in their pools. We've got 4 points in Contamination. This gives us 600% poison resistance shred chance. So to explain how this works, resistance shred chance is the chance to shred some poison resistance, and that would be a 5% against mobs and 2% against players and bosses. And the reason that's confusing is you see 600% and you might think, wow, I get to shred 600% resistance, that's way too much. Really what that is, you're actually doing 6 stacks of shred, and each stack of shred does 5% against enemies or 2% against bosses and other players. So what this really means is, in your hits with this, you're actually on hit doing 6 stacks, which is 30% of poison shred against, or poison resistance reduction against mobs, and 12% against bosses and players. So you need all the points in there because you're still not taking away that 75% resist you could do, or going fully negative as much as you could to do more damage. Then we got 1 point in poison pulls. This makes a poison pull for a 4-second duration, and it poisons enemies inside of it, as you would imagine. We got 5 points in hydrochloric acid, which gives you 100% global poison chance with all the other skills you use while you're inside of one of the pools. So if you stand inside of one of those and then use your shurikens, you're going to have a little bit more poison chance. And then we have 3 points in lingering toxicity. This makes the pool last longer. And 4 points in amoxicillin pools. Means that the infectious toxin chance is 100%, which means that you will be applying an infection toxin every second on top of normal poison, kind of like the plague, if you will, with some of the other classes that we have, or like the plague bear staff. It's like plague, but it's just called something different. Then for shift, we have shift set up to proc our shurikens, give us haste, give us dodge, give us our mana back, give us invincibility, and proc our flask. That's a lot going on with one skill, and all we have to do is shift around. This is why you can speedrun so easily through a lot of the echoes, is you just keep shifting and it does the damage for you, and it leaves behind the poison pulls to kill things that follow you. So we got 2 points in shadow recuperation, 5 points in sleight of hand, which means every time we shift we'll have the 5 shurikens going around us, which will be doing poison to enemies that are in our proximity, that are close enough to be being hit by them. We got 4 points in swift recovery, 3 points in momentum, so after we shift we get haste for 1.5 seconds, 1 point in shadow slip so we're invulnerable while we shift, 1 point in elusive gives us dodge rating, 30 flat dodge rating per point of dex that we have, which will bump us up to 80% plus dodge temporarily or for 1 second. 2 points in parting gift and 2 points in arrival gift is what will give us that 100% chance for a flask on both the departure and the arrival to leave behind the pools. And what's nice is as you shift through the echoes and you round up, that whole stack of mobs that are chasing you, since they have full map aggro, as they're following you, they'll just keep running through those pools as you're shifting away, and they'll eventually all kill themselves. For Shurikens, we have this set up to pierce, but it's also going to orbit around us, and we're doing as many projectiles as possible so you can get as many hits as possible with the Shurikens. And when we get into the how the build works at the very end, where I show you the examples against the training dummy, I am going to have to show you how exactly you do the most damage with them, because they don't work like you think. Even though they orbit around you and they have 100% pierce, they will not hit the same enemy again. So when you're attacking bosses, you have to keep manually casting it over and over again. But we'll get into that at the end. Right now we have this set up with 3 points in Alacrity. 4 points in Abrasive Arsenal will give you that 200% poison red shred chance, which means that for every hit that happens against bosses, you'll be doing 10% poison resistance reduction, as well as 4% against bosses and players. Then we got 1 point in Thin Shurikens for 2 additional Shurikens being thrown. 1 point in Blade Shield, so they will now orbit around us for a 3-second duration. 4 points in Floating Blades, so that duration is increased by 60%, meaning they will last for almost 5 seconds. It's like 4.8 seconds or so, which means that you only have to cast it once every 5 seconds. But again, like I said, if you're trying to attack at the same mob, meaning a rare or a high health boss or something like that, you're going to want to manually cast it over and over again. But again, we will discuss that in the how to play section of the guide. Then we got 4 points in Ethereal Blades for that 100% pierce chance, 1 point in Weighted Projectiles for the physical penetration. We don't really care about that. 1 point in Deep Cuts for the bleed chance. Don't really care about that. But we do care about the 1 point in Phantom Blades for 2 more Shurikens, which just means every time you cast it, it's going to be 2 more hits that you're getting with it on an enemy. For Smoke Bomb, I'm using this defensively as well as for a little bit of leech. However, there are some points here, and we'll go over those, that you can put elsewhere in the tree. So we got 1 point in Shrouded in Darkness and 4 points in Rapid Concealment, so that every second we get a Dust Shroud stack. This is going to give us 50 flat dodge rating as well as 5% glancing below chance. And then we have 1 point in Impending Gloom to increase the radius and the growth speed. 1 point in Generosity increases the starting area. 5 points in Lingering Fumes increases the duration to the max by another 50%. And then we got 5 points in Smoke Blades and 3 points in Blood Bandit. This is just for a little bit of leech. These are the 8 points that you can put elsewhere in the tree. You can really go anywhere with them. You can build into slow, armor shred, even some more poison if you'd like. And then for Synchronized Strike, this is a skill that you can put anything in the skill slot. If you want to use Decoy, you can use Decoy. If you want to use Dark Quiver, you can use Dark Quiver. I really don't find myself using Synchronized Strike that often. You can really put any skill in there as the 5th one, because really all you're doing most of the time is just shifting, which is auto going to proc the Flask. It's also going to auto proc Shurikens, and then when you need to kill bosses and things, you're going to manually be casting Shurikens. So there's really nothing else that I really felt like I needed to put there. I went with Synchronized Strike because since we're not really using any mana, we went with a mana heavy skill that would generate shadows. The shadows would give us health, and then also they would all fire out our Shurikens when we manually cast it, so it would give a huge AoE just to look cool, basically. It's really not doing much for the build, but the way that I do have the spec is 1 point in Coordinated Cuts, 3 points in Dynamics, 4 points in Shadow Rush, 1 point in Growing Darkness, 5 points in Foreshadowing, 1 point in Dark Allies, and 5 points in Art of the Blade. For passives, I got 48 points in the Rogue passive tree with 8 points in Steady Hand, 8 points in Guile, 5 points in Evasion, 5 points in Agility, 1 point in Twin Blade, 8 points in Duelist, 8 points in Poison Tipped, and 5 points in Dodge and Parry. You can see we're going for as much dodge and glancing blow as well as move speed with damage reduction as we can get, because we really want to have good survivability, as you can be quite squishy with the low amount of HP that you have, so you really want to capitalize on that dodge and that glancing blow that you can get. And then for the Bladedancer, we got 65 points with 8 points in Pursuit, 8 points in Cloak of Shadows, 10 points in Blood Serpent's Blades, 8 points in Once, 6 points in Shroud of Dust, so that every time we get hit, there's a chance that we'll proc a Dust Shroud, which would therefore make it harder for us to get hit, giving us that 50 flat dodge rating. And then it'll also give us 5% Glancing Blow, so that if we do get hit again, there's an even higher chance that we'll take 35% less damage. It also gives us more HP, which is huge, so very good node to build into defensive-wise. Then we got 1 point in Flash of Steel, 8 points in Weapons of Choice, 6 points in a Suvan's Pact, 5 points in Cloaker Reaper, and 5 points in Spell Breaker. And then for idols, items, and blessings, so the 2x2s you want, for the prefix you want chance to poison on hit per equipped dagger on all 4 of them. For the suffix you have a few choices. If you want more armor shred, you can get increased shred armor effect, or you can get dodge rating if you have hit an enemy or been hit recently. And this one I find is the better one, because what it means is if you do take a hit, it's even less likely for you to get hit again, since your dodge is going to jump up a bunch. And if you have this on all 4 idols, you'll have about 456 more dodge at maximum rolls, and that amount of flat is going to be huge because you have a lot of increased as well. So you actually get about 1,000 to 2,000 more dodge by having those 4 idols, which is going to up your percentage of dodge from 50 or 55 up to 60 to 65%. So it makes it even more likely that you're going to dodge an attack, which is awesome for this build that's kind of a go type playstyle that's really dependent on dodging the attacks. And then for the 1x1s, we got dodge rating in the prefix with poison damage in the suffix. There are 2 uniques on this build. They're not required, but they do help. One for DPS and one for defense. For the DPS side, we have Lyreka's Claws. This is going to give you up to 130% chance to poison on throwing hits, which is your Shurikens. It'll also give you 2 extra projectiles with Shurikens, so you're not only going to have more poison chance with each one that hits, but you'll have 2 more of them, so that every cast is going to get 2 more hits. So this is very, very good for DPS. And then on the defensive side of things, we have the Bleeding Heart. Since we're not doing a lot of hit damage, we're getting the Bleeding Heart. You don't do spells, so you won't make yourself bleed, but you can leech up to 9% of all of that damage you're doing of dot damage. And since we're doing a lot of poison damage and we're stacking that poison really quick, this actually gives you a lot of leech. Then for just the regular items, I'm just going to hover over them. Basically the most important stats you're wanting here: dodge rating, poison chance, poison damage, and then cap your resistances if you can. And of course this will be in the description below, and the link for this will also be in the written guide. I'm also just going to hover the blessings. These are not all the best in choice, or best in slot if you will, but they're the ones that I have on my character, and I kind of want to match this up with the gameplay so that you know what to expect. Alright, for the character sheet, as you'll see, we have about 1200 health. We have almost capped resistances on everything except for Void and Lightning. So those are 2 that you would want to work on from the gear that I have. Try and maximize those. We got 14% armor, and then we have, most importantly, 54% static dodge. Now this is very important. This number will go higher, but getting over 50% dodge is very important, because that's what's going to make you actually not feel so squishy. You'll still die from one-shots here and there, but the more dodge you have, the less likely you are to die, especially if you can dodge the very big mechanics that you know will be one-shots. Little hits aren't going to be able to kill you, and you won't take enough of them for them to actually drain your life down, and you're going to have enough leech that anything other than a one-shot is going to replenish your life really quick. So we were taking this through. All the gameplay you have is in empowered content with corruption between 100 and 150. So as you can see, there are not a lot of deaths, but one-shots will come if you stand in the wrong spot at the wrong time. And then for damages, between 200 and 300% damages, just over 400% poison, 400% damage over time, and then of course you have your crit multi and all that, but none of that matters as we are a dot build. And then for defense, we only have 31% glancing below. That will go up as we have smoke bomb. And then of course we do not have any critical strike avoidance on this build, so that is something that you'll want to work in somehow. I was going to do blessings and then redo my gear a little bit as I leveled a bit more, and then of course try and get to that 60% endurance. Even if you don't do any threshold, you definitely want to work into that. But even without critical strike avoidance, we were still pretty tanky with this build. And then just to show you what will happen to your dodge and this glancing blow chance, if you have smoke bomb active and it goes up, you'll see your dodge instantly goes above 60% all the way up to 68%. So you're very, very tanky when you're in here. You'll get above that 50% chance for a glancing blow. So when you do get hit, you'll take, that 35% less damage about half the time. And then also remember, when you do take a hit, you get all of that dodge when recently hit, so that'll bump you up above the 70 percentile. Then for how I play this build and what I do, I like to put, if I'm doing echoes, I won't put anything on autocast. I'll just shift along and then manually cast shurikens whenever I need it. If I'm in a boss fight or if I'm in arena and I want the smoke bomb going off quite often so I can go around it, I might put smoke bomb on autocast, but really nothing here really goes on autocast. You'll also notice I do not have the acid flask on my skill bar. I have the decoy instead, so I can throw the decoy on if I need it for a couple of seconds. In boss fights that becomes really nice. And then again there's the Synchronized Strike, which I'll show you here, but I don't really use. But basically all you do with this build, you just shift, you'll see you'll have the shurikens come out, the acid flask, auto proc, and if you shift into the target here, you can see that you're already doing decent damage. It's not a lot, but you can get some decent poison damage. You should be able to get about 10k on one shift with the hits. Yeah, we got 10,000 poison damage, 15,000 there for one tick. But it's the manual casting, so basically what you do when the echoes, you just shift around, your acid flask goes off. As you continue running, you'll hit things in the front, and then everything else that follows you will die with the poison. But then the other thing you can do is manually cast the shurikens, which gives you more of the actual projectiles, and you can do more hits. And you can see here, just a few seconds of clicking on here, we're already doing 200,000 plus damage, which is quite a bit, and that's how you'll take the bosses out. Throw down your smoke bomb, and then go ahead and just cast your shurikens, and plenty of damage will go your way. And that's pretty much it for the build. Shift and fire off shurikens. Throw on a decoy if you need it. Throw on a smoke bomb if you need it for defense. And then the last thing, like I said, the Synchronized Strike can be switched out with anything else that you want. Maybe you want the skill tree for decoy. But all Synchronized Strike does, since nothing else is really spending our mana, all you do is you do it, you get your shadows, and then you can fire shurikens in all directions. Not a lot of damage, but it's something that I just threw in for the heck of it. And that's going to be it for this build guide. Hope you guys found it easy to follow, and as always, stay safe travelers and enjoy some gameplay.